Hello, and welcome to a very special three-part edition of the More Than Able podcast. I'm Margie, and I say very special three-part edition because September is Hydrocephalus Awareness Month, and I have hydrocephalus, and I wanted to share my story and talk to other people who either have the same story or people who have worked within the hydrocephalus community. And we will finish it off with talking with my mom, my dad, and my stepdad. So it's going to be great. But today we are going to start off. I have graciously and probably annoyingly asked my followers and friends and family who have been listening to the podcast to send me questions, whether it was about hydrocephalus or just about me in general. So, quick backstory. I was diagnosed with hydrocephalus when I was 8 months old. Hydrocephalus comes from the Greek term water on the brain. And I was never supposed to walk. I was never supposed to talk. And here I am today doing a podcast, which is amazingly crazy. And I had what's called a VP shunt put into my head and my abdomen when I was 12 months old. And what a shunt is it's tubing that runs from my head all the way down to my abdomen, and it drains what's called cerebral spinal fluid. And the diagnosis was, of course, like I said, I was never supposed to walk. I was never supposed to talk. But my parents had the strong will that I was going to do that. And I am so grateful for that because here I am almost or about 31 years later, and I'm working 3 amazing volunteer jobs. I have great friends. My faith is strong. I have a great boyfriend, a supportive family, and I've gotten to do so much in my life, like going to concerts and meeting the singers backstage, and I've gotten to travel to some amazing places. And so now I'm going to answer some questions. And the first question comes from Ada. And she wants to know, what advice would I have given myself 10 years ago? Wow. So let's see. 10 years ago, I was almost 21, and I was just getting ready to graduate from my transition program, and I would say just keep going on the path that you're going on, because you are going to find some amazing opportunities and meet a lot of great people, and it's going to take a while, but you're going to get there, and you just need to do your best and not get frustrated. So, okay, next question comes from Mariah, and she has a ton of questions, so I'll try and zing through them as quick as I can. First one, how does hydrocephalus affect your daily life? Oh, wow, that is a really good question. So, with hydrocephalus, there's some cognitive delay, and so there are certain things that I have trouble doing, like taking a shower or tying my shoelaces, my tennis shoelaces, or even like cutting food. And so I have to rely on people like my family to help me and support me, which they do. And so that has been a real learning experience for me, learning how to advocate for myself and not just be a people pleaser and not have to be like, okay, I know what I'm doing, like I can do this, when in reality it's like, Margie, you have no idea what you're doing. You're gonna mess this up. Like, you need help. Do you get headaches or migraines, and how do you treat them? Yes, I do. About, let's see, almost 10 years ago, developed these migraine headaches that later turned into pressure headaches. And how I found out that they were migraine headaches was going to a movie theater and eating the movie theater popcorn. And the oil in the popcorn somehow triggered a headache in me. And it was scary. Like, I lost my vision and I couldn't move. Like, my mom literally had to drag me out of the movie theater. And I went to the hospital, and then here comes the crazy part. I burped and I was fine. So since then, it's like this pattern of things where it's like I get the headache, I get all these symptoms, blurry vision, and shakiness in my hands. Sometimes I'll get like chills or something, and then I drink some Coke, regular Coke, and it has caffeine in it, and I burp, and I'm fine. And we haven't figured out how that all correlates, but thankfully, Junia at my doctor, or my neurosurgeon's office, Dr. Naguib, who is like my savior, she recommended I start drinking Coke, which before that, I never drank pop, like ever. I didn't like the taste of it and everything, but now it's like, it's what saves me from these debilitating headaches. And so, yeah. So for Hydrocephalus Awareness Month, you can spread awareness by listening to this podcast, for one, and they have walks around the country that start, I believe, in September. The one here is September 9th. And what I do every year, I have for like a few years, is I do a birthday fundraiser on Facebook, and I direct it towards the Hydrocephalus Association for the reason of Hydrocephalus Awareness Month and my birthday both being in September. So, next question comes from Carrie, and she says, what was the most difficult part of your journey personally? Not just your family, referring to my hydrocephalus journey. I would say the hardest part in the beginning was fitting in at school, like with kids who didn't have unique differences. And it was tough because, like, they didn't understand, like, why I did certain things or why I had to miss so much school because I was sick because of my hydrocephalus. And that was tough for me in the beginning. But as I got older, I didn't have to miss a whole lot of school. So it was easier for me to make friends and maintain those relationships. And I had really great teachers who were very supportive, and they were able to help navigate through when I was sick, like telling the students, okay, Margie is going to be out for a little while because of this, and bringing me my homework and all that. So thank you, Carrie, for that question. Next comes from my wonderful godmother and my aunt, Kathy. What do you think families learn by having a relative with a disability? That is a really good question, because that was another thing that growing up, it was a struggle too, was like with my cousins. I was such a picky eater, like most kids, but like I would want to eat something different than my cousins, and my cousins were almost jealous. They would be like, why does Margie get to eat something different than we do? And shout out to my mom, she put up with it for a long time until finally one day she was like, okay, kid, we need to change your diet, like, now. And it was like, okay. And now I am eating a lot more foods than I used to. Some good, some bad. But, yeah, and then the follow-up, how does it make people in a family better people? I feel like it's a sense of understanding. Like, you know, it's your niece, it's your nephew, it's your cousin, it's your granddaughter, it's your grandson. And your grandkids and your nieces and nephews are all going to be different. We're all different. There isn't one person that is the same as the other person, because if we were all the same, I mean, it would be a pretty boring place. Like on the TV shows you see where they create all the same people and then they all turn into these blobs, and it's like, it's just, that's just how it is. Another one from one of my out-of-town aunts. How do you feel traveling and visiting with 120 family members? which is timely because I get to do that this weekend. And I love it. Growing up as an only child, I basically getting to spend time with my cousins, that was great for me, especially traveling with my dad to go see our family out of state. I looked forward to that every year or every 2 years, and I still do, because we get to see them and spend 4 days with them, and there's no judgment. There's they love me no matter what. They don't see my disability or my unique difference. They just see me, their niece, their cousin, their second cousin. Because, I mean, let's be honest, 120 people, that's a lot. But it's people who love you and people who want to know how you're doing, what you're up to, who you're dating, who you've seen in concert. That's always a funny one with my dad's side of the family, because I'm friends with all of them on Facebook, and so they see all of it and they're like, "You're so lucky." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." Next one comes from Fatu. Who is your biggest inspiration? Oh, goodness. That's a good one. I would have to say my mom. And the reason why is because she was a single mom for so many years, and she made sure that I was going to all the right doctors and getting all the right medical care and tests, and that I was doing well in school, not so much academically, but more socially, which I feel like is the case for a lot of kids with unique differences, because it's we go in, we just want to be like all the other kids. We want to play kickball at recess, or we want to sit at the lunch table and talk about certain things, or we want to be invited to that sleepover at somebody's house. So, what was your high school experience like? Ooh. Well, kind of going back to my point before, my high school experience, sophomore year, the first 2 weeks were scary because I was in this new big school, and I didn't feel like I was connecting with very many of my peers as I would have liked, and I would go home crying to my mom and saying I don't like this class, I don't like this teacher. And my mom was very supportive. She was like, "Okay, we'll change it." And she would even come to school with my personal care assistant, Lily, for the first 2 weeks because I couldn't even eat in the lunchroom. I was a nervous wreck. So we would have to go into the nurse's office and eat lunch in there. And then finally one day my mom was just like, "Okay, we can't keep doing this. We need to change it." And so, like any good mom would, she found me a friend who took me under her wing. And she was a senior in high school, and I was a sophomore. So imagine that. You're a sophomore in high school, and you, like, your friends are all kind of spread out and all that, and you want to kind of have that social interaction. And you meet this senior girl, and she invites you to come and sit at her lunch table with her and her friends. And next thing you know, you guys are hanging out, going to movies, and one of them even interviews you for the school yearbook because you got to see the Jonas Brothers and meet them. True story. And then they graduate, and so then you're left meeting other friends, and then they graduate, and now you're the senior, and you have these amazing friends who stick by you, and some of them I still keep in touch with, some of them not so much. So yeah, that's what my high school experience was like. Favorite childhood memory? Oh goodness. I would say getting to hang out with my best friend when I was in elementary school and getting to go to her house, and she was the second oldest of 6 kids. And me being an only child, that was an experience. But I actually saw her mom the other day, and Fatu was with me, and she still remembers how I would go over to their house and I would kind of be like her helper. Like, if one of the younger siblings needed a diaper change, it was like, Mary Kay, somebody needs a diaper change. And then we kind of grew apart, but it's great that I still get to see her mom every once in a while at the grocery store or the coffee shop, and we get to just catch up, like, on all of the kids and myself. And all right, I hope you guys take something away from this podcast. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I do not mind sharing my story because hydrocephalus is not very well known. It's not like autism or cerebral palsy or Down syndrome, but it's there. It's a unique difference. And one thing I've learned is there's so many different moving parts to it. And I look at these kids who don't have what I have, or they have different, like, capabilities than I do. And I think, wow, I'm really lucky because I have parents who early on intervened. And that's not to say that there are some parents that don't. So shout out to all you parents out there who have been working hard to make sure that your kids have the most quote unquote normal life. But then again, what is normal these days? And I hope you take away from this that I am doing this to be a voice, and I feel so lucky and blessed that I get to do this. And I hope you guys continue to listen. And again, if you have questions, reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer them. And thank you for listening. And just remember, you're more than able.